Hello everyone and welcome to a new video on the channel. Today we are doing the mid-month reading update for November, and I'm very excited to state that I have read 10 books so far, which is incredible. Let's not mess around and get straight into the reviews. So the first book that I'm going to talk about today is Captive of the Stolen Empire by Megan Van Dyke. I think this is going to be book one in a series, though I don't know what the series name will be. It's not listed anywhere yet, but the ending to this world showed signs that this could be built on, so I'm going to share it as part one to a series. And this book just came out yesterday. It is this author's first epic fantasy novel, and I am on her street team for transparency, and that is why I have a copy of this, and I ended up giving it 3 stars. I really wanted to like this one because it was marketed as if you love Bridge Kingdom and if you love enemies to lovers, then you're going to sort of like this type of world. And the Bridge Kingdom is one of my favorite series, and I really do enjoy enemies to lovers. It's my favorite trope, so I thought I was going to have a fantastic time with this. Unfortunately, this one just didn't hit right for me. This follows the story of 𝓤𝓲, and she is a captive to the empire that has taken over several states or cities. I don't think they're countries, but little states within a kingdom, and to show the goodwill and the essentially when her parents, who are the king and queen, surrendered, to show goodwill, they gave 𝓤𝓲 to the emperor as a guest. She isn't to be treated poorly by any means, just to show their allegiance to the empire. But 𝓤𝓲 is obviously very disgruntled by this. She is angry that this type of thing has to happen, and she goes in with a plan to ruin them from the inside out. And her character is essentially supposed to be a spy to help the rebellion succeed outside the empire, or inside the empire walls. Again, that does sound very much so like a good epic fantasy, or high fantasy, sorry, with the Bridge Kingdom in mind, because that's pretty much the plot to that as well, except there's a marriage involved. So I was expecting a lot from this. I just felt like 𝓤𝓲 as a character was a bit underdeveloped and too reckless and inconsistent for me to really vibe with her. Essentially, she put everyone at the risk of her plans, and other people had to pay the consequences for her actions, which I didn't like at all. Yeah, the romance aspects also came along pretty fast, and it didn't really build up from enemies to lovers. They were on two sides of the coin at the beginning of the book, and whilst I enjoyed the ending to this book and the rebellion and all that pacing there, I just found that I wasn't interested enough to continue on with this world or root for the characters in the way that perhaps the author hoped. I'm not going to say anymore. I think this author is incredibly talented. I wouldn't follow her and be on her street team if I didn't. This just wasn't a book for me. Okay, so the next book that I'm going to talk about is The Duke and I. It's Bridgerton #1 by Julia Quinn. I'm sure a lot of people know about this book already. They've probably read it or seen the TV show adaptation. I watched the TV show first, and I didn't really have big hopes for reading this book. I was convinced by a friend to pick it up, but I haven't really wanted to at any stage. I just thought I wasn't going to really enjoy it. I was just okay about the show. I don't find it, that the hype behind it, to be my type of thing. But then, in saying that, I don't watch TV enough, so yeah. Anyway, essentially, I didn't have expectations. I came into this not expecting anything at all. I picked it up only because I needed it for a prompt for the readathon that I'm doing this month, and the prompt was to read a book that had a TV or movie adaptation, or was going to have one. And since I'd already read Fourth Wing and Iron Flame wasn't out at that point, I only had this on my shelf that I could use. So I actually found the audiobook on Libby, and I read it all in one day and absolutely enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. It is very much so what I expected it to be, in the sense of the storyline is very similar to what happens in the show, which I appreciated. And it just felt like I knew these characters because I'd watched the show, so I was already aware of what would happen for them. But it was nice to see the in-depth behaviour between some of the more heavier situations that happened as consequences to the storyline. If at all you have not heard about this book, it is a historical Regency era based romance, and it focuses on the eldest daughter of a family called the Bridgertons, and she is of wedding or marriage age, and it's, I think, her first season, and she is not finding it very fun. She's really over all the men that have made inquiries about her, and she makes a deal with a duke who has come back from his traveling the world, who has no interest in getting married, and their deal is to seem like they are interested in one another, and therefore none of the other people in the season or the ton would be able to get in the way of that. So they'd essentially get some freedom within the ranks, and also it meant that Daphne would get sort of some credibility because she wasn't really getting good pickings from the rest of the male interest within the ton. So they make this fake dating relationship happen, and you know what's going to happen. They obviously fall in love, and yeah, it's really good. I really liked the fact that there's also a really long epilogue involved, showcasing them well beyond the series. I didn't really see the point to some of it, but I did enjoy it, and yeah, overall it just felt like a warm, cozy read for me. Like, I already knew what was to be expected to a point. I didn't have any like overall ambitious beliefs of what I would think of the series, so it was just enjoyable, and I listened to it all in one sitting, so that says something. The next book I finished was This Woven Kingdom by Tahereh Mafi. This is book 1 in the same named titled series, and this is a fantasy set in a kingdom where the jinn have been sort of erased, or at least pushed into being the lower class against humans, and the main character, Eliza, is hiding her identity because she is the heir to the throne of the jinn, and she is currently working as a low-level servant in a noble house just to keep herself alive and make ends meet. And her journey goes from being a servant to having to step out into the world again and showcasing who she is, and also discovering herself within the royal intrigue of the prince. And there's also like a lot of perilous behaviour happening in this kingdom. I enjoyed the fact that this is dual point of view, so we get Eliza's point of view, and we also get the prince's point of view. I think his name's Cameron, and yeah, it was really nice to see how things that are a privilege to some weren't for the other, and also how they would navigate their duties to their people. And again, it was very much so like The Duke and I had zero expectations for this book because I did not enjoy Shadow Me by this author. So this was my second attempt at reading something by this author, and I actually liked this one. And I think I gave it 4 stars because of that, not having expectations, and for the most part it was quite interesting. The ending is very rushed. There's a lot of chaotic things happening and being presented, and you have to kind of figure out as the revelations happen what's going to be important into the next book and who's going to be the next big players. I wasn't really sold on the romance, so I'm kind of glad that that's not... I mean, it's going to be obviously a plot in the second book in the series, and how that's going to affect everything from where it left off, but I wasn't like a huge fan of Cameron, so I'm interested to see what the twists will happen in the next book. I wouldn't say that I'm frothing at the mouth to pick it up, but I am intrigued enough to continue on with the series. So yeah, I enjoyed myself. I'm not going to put the reading log back up there just to take it back off again, so I'll put the picture of the book here. But the next one we're going to talk about is Nutcracker of Crystalfall. This is by K.L. Moody. It was a novella. I think it's like set in a world that she has a series in, but they're not the main characters. It's just like a side story, a companion story to that series, I believe. This was my first thing that I've read by this author. I, for full transparency, picked this up in a Stuff Your Kindle day, and I read it only because, again, the readathon that I'm taking part in had a prompt, and it was the shortest book that had a black cover that I owned, so that is why I read it. And this is following 2 characters. I know that the main male character is called Revan, but I cannot remember her name off the top of my head. Yeah, no, it's lost on me, sorry. But essentially she is the daughter of a noble family, but she cannot read or write. I think she had a form of dyslexia, and her family saw that as a sign of weakness and was trying to marry her off to this really cruel second son of another family, and he was quite ambitious and wanted more in life as well. So it starts out with her being really sad because her last days in her family home were about to be over, and she meets this person at the revelry who turns out to be Faye, and his name is Revan. She sees that he gets attacked in the middle of the night by some trolls in her backyard, and she goes to help him and ends up going into the world of fairy. And from there, she has to help Revan with a golden tree and against the trolls, and also his king. There's a few little obstacles that they have to go over. To be honest, I read this simply to fill the prompt. I didn't really enjoy it. I gave it 3 stars. I think the author has potential, and if there was more room for, like, if this wasn't just a short novella, I feel like there would have been more room to build the characters and the world up. I really liked the pixies that were in this world, and I would have liked to spend more time with them and get to know them a bit more, but overall it was just okay. I don't see myself rushing to pick up anything else by this author, but I did see their writing skill as quite interesting. Thank goodness that's holding. I don't know how long it's going to hold. So this is the next book. This is Lore Olympus Volume 3. I, again, read this for the readathon prompt, and this one was to spell out my name in the title, and like it could be on the entire page. And so my name's spelt out with both the author's name and the title. And I have read books 1 and 2, or volumes 1 and 2. This is this is originally a webtoon that has been turned into a graphic novel, and it is essentially around Hades and Persephone and the Greek gods and their tales. I really like the way that this author has taken the mythology and turned it into their own story. and has slight digs at some of the behaviours that were atrocious towards each other. The gods were very cruel at points, and also a lot of humour, and I think that the author has done really well to work with some trigger warning topics and themes, such as rape and non-consensual sex, quite well. I like the storyline, but after book 2 I wasn't like hugely invested to pick up books 3 and 4. I owned them, but I wasn't like rushing to do it, so this was just because of the readathon. But I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. The first half wasn't so interesting, but the second half I really enjoyed. I was laughing a lot. There was a lot of times that I was really intrigued by what was happening. This reads very fast for me. I enjoyed the 40-ish minutes that I spent on this. I love the illustrations and just the decadence of reading it in this format. I know I could read it as a webtoon, but I really like it this way instead. And yeah, I was really happy with this. And ironically, another prompt came along, and we will see it in a minute. Volume 4 has also been read, and I'm glad that I read them so close in time. But yeah, 4 stars for this one. Next up is A Venom Dark and Sweet. This is book 2 in the Book of Tea series, or duology, by Judy Eileen. I read A Magic Steeped in Poison in February. No, not February. Was it February or March, earlier this year, and gave it 5 stars. It's one of my favourite reads of 2023, so I had high expectations for this one. Unfortunately, they were not met. I gave this 3.5 stars, which is really gutting. So this follows on from the world we left. Ning, who was our main character in book 1, is now on the run after everything that went down in the political corruption of the royal family, and she's on the run with the princess and her guard and also her sister that she managed to save. And we get her point of view, and we also get Kung's point of view, and he is the main male protagonist, and he is the son of the, I wouldn't call him necessarily the villain, but essentially his father has risen to power and taken the throne, and so he is thrust into obligation with his father and his people, and then also his feelings for his cousin, which is the princess, and also Ning. And we get the dual point of view in this one, which I really appreciated. It was one of the things I did really like about the story, and I actually enjoyed Kung's journey through finding himself in the middle of this political manipulation and maneuvering into a new court, and what would happen to people if they didn't want to play with that court. Obviously there was a lot of deaths that happened, and he started to question things along the way. So I liked his portion of this book a great deal, and I also liked that his steadfast beliefs in Ning continued. Even when he was doubting some things overall, he more so had guilt rather than doubt for Ning, and I really appreciated that. However, I feel like the author lost her way with this one. I really like East Asian mythology and like stories that are like the retellings, and I do find that this seems to be somewhat of a trend with a few of the books that I've read that have had like a sequel. The first book's fantastic, you're really invested in the world, and then the sequel has to wrap up this world that they've done such a great job on that it feels like it should have just been a longer standalone piece. And that's how I felt about this one. I don't feel like this duology, or the sequel to the book 1, really was needed. I think we could have wrapped up a bit more in book 1. Obviously there's this whole take on, you know, like they've been thrust out, they're on the run, they're fugitives now, and there's a new power in play, and we've got to get through this ancient evil that comes through, who is involved with the whole downfall of the First Kingdom, and now they're raising themselves back up into power, things like that. That just feels very like commonplace in an East Asian fantasy novel. I hope that doesn't seem like I'm being offensive or anything. I just find like it felt very samey, like there was nothing new to it. I really liked the magic system in this world. It's around tea, and brewing different types of tea can help or hinder, and it was just really fascinating, and I wanted more of that. But it feels like poor Ning went on this journey to not only take on the evil, but to discover herself and all her conveniently found powers that she now has, and to go on this journey to find more help, and like it just feels like it wasn't anything new. And I find that I was a bit disappointed. So that is why I gave this one 3.5 stars. I will definitely be picking up more by this author because I do like their writing style and I do like their ideas. I just feel like this one wasn't as great as the first book, and because I had such high expectations, it let me down. The next book I finished was What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez. I'm probably saying that wrong. This is book 1 in the Secrets of the Nile series. It's brand new, it's just come out. I had an ARC copy of this and I absolutely enjoyed it. I gave it 4.5 stars. This follows the feisty Inez, and unfortunately for her, she lives in Argentina and her parents are really obsessed with Egypt, to the point that they spend half the year of every year in Egypt and they've never taken her along once, and she's always wondered what happens in Egypt, what is so fascinating about this country and this place that she isn't allowed to go and see herself. And she misses her parents dearly, and she's waiting at home with her aunt that she lives in. By the way, this is like, for society, Inez and her family are quite well off. They sit high in Argentinian society. She has a lot of money essentially, and she just can't understand why her parents are off doing this when they could be at home with her, and she's waiting for this letter to hear from them. And unfortunately for her, she gets a letter telling her that her parents have mysteriously died in Egypt. And for a while she grieves, but soon is on a ship, and since she is now the sole heir of her family's fortune, she leaves in the middle of the night and goes to Egypt to, 1, find out what actually happened to her parents, why they were so fascinated with this place and they died there, and 2, to really discover more of the world herself, because she's only been able to read it through books or through the experiences of others, and she's had enough of it not being her journey. She wants to find out more, and the only person that's going to find that out for her is herself. So she goes to Egypt, she pretends that she is a widow, so no one harasses her while she's on this journey, and she arrives in hopes to find her uncle and discover more about what's going on. But once she arrives, they essentially want to get rid of her immediately, because there's this entire deadly story going on in Egypt, and her family worked in expeditions. They were digging up sites to find, you know, the archaeological wonders of the time. This is set in the late 1800s, so at the height of British and Western interest in Egypt, and exploration was starting to become quite a fanciful thing. There are a lot of tourists in the area. Egypt is being westernized, and of course all the artifacts that are there are worth a lot of money at this point, and there's a lot of power that wants this. So she doesn't really know like enough to be, it's hard to say, because I think Inez is fantastic as a character in the sense of her ability to just throw herself into things, even if it's quite recklessly, because she believes that she has the right to know more and she shouldn't be shunned because she is naive or a woman, or, you know, like any of these reasons. There are quite a few. She is determined to find her answers and no one's going to stop her. I really liked that about her, even though I would be suddenly going, oh, you're going to get in trouble in a minute, this is not good for you. but she would persevere through. I really liked that about her and her character. She was really hell-bent on finding out about her parents. The issue about being this focused on this like determination means that it was very easy for Inez to follow the wrong people or fall into the wrong traps or make things worse than they already were, and she didn't know because people were keeping secrets from her. And I really enjoyed the intrigue about this world. I enjoyed the murder mystery. I enjoyed the fact that we couldn't quite trust anyone that was around Inez except for Inez, because she didn't know anything, so how could she be, you know, the one in the wrong? And I just really enjoyed how this played out. I absolutely loved the main male character. We do get his point of view at points, and it was fantastic. Love him so much. His name's Whit. And just, yeah, absolutely loved him. The banter between him and Inez is top tier, and I really loved the romance subplot, but I also just loved the intrigue between all the characters and the twists and turns. I will admit this ends on quite a cliffhanger. We don't know when book 2 is coming, and I am very mad by this cliffhanger. I want to know now. It's a very, very difficult place to be stopped at. So I would recommend waiting to read this book until you're closer to knowing when book 2 comes out, or closer to that release, just so you don't have this massive cliffhanger hanging over your head. But equally, I would highly recommend this. This is such a good read. The only thing that I didn't really enjoy is the magic system. There was, I liked the magic system around the artifacts. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. But there were elements around the other magic system when items such as a sandal became a torch, or a handkerchief had hot water in it. Yeah, I like reading fantastical things, and this type of whimsy magic could have worked if the entire book was whimsy. Like India Holton's books, that would have worked perfectly in there and it would have made sense. But in this world, it felt gimmicky compared to everything else that was going on, if that makes sense. That was my only sort of nitpicky moment about it. I think I've got a couple of other little ones, but I can't remember them off the top of my head. All I'm saying is that this book was fantastic. The girl in me that grew up loving ancient Egypt was thrilled by this. And if you enjoy ancient Egypt, things like The Mummy and just really feisty FMCs and YA fantasy, I highly recommend you pick this up. The next book I finished was Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. This is another standalone of her YA romances. Actually, no, it's not a standalone. It's getting made into a series. Sorry, that's my bad. And this follows Wes and Liz. They are neighbours, and they've been in a battle of the wits for quite a few years. Liz absolutely despises Wes. They have this game over her. Like they both have this one spot in the driveway, and they've both got a car, so they've been fighting it out for this spot. Things like that. He really bugs her, and Liz is a hopeless romantic. Her and her mum, before her mum passed away, used to watch a lot of the romantic movies, the rom-coms that we all know and love, and she has lived by the rules that she's learnt in this. She believes in a meet cute. She believes that the one is out there waiting for her, and she's going to have this magic moment with them. And she believes that when Michael, who used to live in the neighbourhood, returns back to her life, that this is the time. And of course she wants to try and get involved very quickly and stamp her place in his life before someone else ends up taking it. And she begs Wes to help her by giving up the car spot in hopes that he will help her find a way to get closer to Michael, because she isn't naturally a popular person and he has more connections than she does. Of course, this means that they end up in a fake dating type relationship with the attempt of making her look more desirable to Michael, and you can guess where this is gonna go. Obviously, Wes has always liked her. You can tell that from the minute that you pick up the book. I did listen to this and I really enjoyed it. It is so good. I really have a thing for Lynn Painter's YA romances. I just think she gets a lot of emotion in there. She gets the tone right with the teenage angst, and she just does it right. This is something about these YA romances that I enjoy, and whilst I don't think this is my favourite one, it's very much so up there. I really enjoyed this, and it was just light-hearted. I listened to it all in one day, and I also am grateful that I was able to pick this up because it is a book on my 23 books in 2023 list, so that's another one checked off. Highly recommend if you like YA romance. This was just really delightful and cute, and I just really love the balance between the humour, the emotional connection, and the journey that Liz went on. As I mentioned before, I have also picked up Lore Olympus Volume 4 this month, again for the readathon, and I gave this 4 stars as well. I really enjoyed this one. I think this one was slightly better than the previous book that I read this month in this series. It really continued well. I liked the insights to Hades. It was really, really cute at points, and also the character development for him. Really appreciate that. I had a lot of interest in some of the side characters as well and what they would do. We also get new people in this to sort of antagonize the situation a bit, and I appreciated the way that Persephone approached her situation with Apollo that has come up in this series. I really liked that it wasn't dragged out any further and she actually stood up for herself. I thought that was fantastic. I'm excited to see where this goes next. I do need to pick up Volume 5, and I'm really enjoying this one. A very short review because I feel like I spoke about it enough in the previous one, but this book was really fun. And the last book I'm going to talk about today is, of course, A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber. This did release last month, but I have patiently waited until 2 of my friends that both wanted to read it with me were available to do so, and I really enjoyed myself. This is the final book in Once Upon a Broken Heart. I don't know if I can angle it up right now. I will probably take a photo or a video after and then add it in above this, over top of this right now, but I have an entire shelf dedicated to this author, and I have multiple copies of this book, and also I know for Christmas I'm getting the US editions for the last 2 books in the series that I don't have, so you can tell that I very much so love this world. It's one of my favorites. My favourite read of 2021 was Once Upon a Broken Heart. My favourite read of 2022 was The Ballad of Never After, sorry. And my book for 2023 will not be A Curse for True Love, but only just has it been pushed down. Emily Wilde still reigns supreme at the moment, but I did really, really enjoy this end to the world. So this follows along from where we left off in book 2. Eva has a lot to rediscover in this book, Evangeline, sorry, and she is going on the journey to try and figure out why she has lost her memories and what her memories pertain that she had to lose in the first place. She is being led astray by her husband Apollo and his belief that Lord Jax is not safe for her at all, and she finds herself still drawn to Jax and discovers along the way a lot more to the story than we ever knew before. I liked the twists, and while some of them were very predictable and I did guess somewhat how it would happen in the end for Jax and Evangeline, I really enjoyed the process of getting here. There's some characters that I really feel like deserve some attention now, and I would love for this author to return to this world. I don't want it to be right away. She doesn't have to do that, but I would love for some of these characters to get their own story. It does appear from one of the alternate endings that that could be very much so the case, but yeah, really liked how this ending came together. It was very predictable. I think like when it comes to books that you've obsessed over for so long, the ending is never going to be 100% your favourite thing. Like, there's always going to be something that you could critique, and I definitely did. I did feel like the ending was a little bit of a letdown, but the whole story to get there was fantastic. I loved that we get the 3 point of views. So we get Evangeline's point of view, we get Apollo's, and we get Jack's. I loved getting Jack's point of view so much, and it was really interesting to get the point of view of Apollo and understand his character as well. But Evangeline and Jax will always be one of my favourite characters and couples. So yeah, really happy we got this ending. Gave it 5 stars. It hasn't beat Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I don't think anything will. But this was a very, very good read, and I absolutely enjoyed it. And I cannot wait for more from this author in the future. I want to say thank you to everyone who watched to the end of this video. If you did, can you put a book emoji in the comments? I will be back with another video very soon. I have promised you all the giveaway journal videos. I will be editing those and hopefully getting them out next. But I do have to also plan for the end of the month. I can't believe we're already smack in the middle of November. And December is just around the corner. As you can tell, I have a Christmas tree up already. I am one of those November types that start Christmas as soon as Halloween's over. And yeah, there's a lot to get ready for and finalise for the end of this year. So I'm feeling a little bit of a flurry in place. But I'm so glad that you spent some time with me today sharing about these books. If you've read any of them, let me know in the comments. I'd love to know your thoughts. Or if you're going to read any of them, have I inspired you to pick them up? I would love to know that as well. And until we next meet, I hope you have fun reading. Bye everyone.